So these are the new motor mounts that I designed, had them CNC cut, MIG welded. I'm a lot better at welding, been practicing a lot. So they're going to be solid. These are the jigs that I built so I can replicate the motor mounts, because no one makes these motor mounts for this vehicle. So I can reproduce these for anybody that needs them. Okay, so my suggestion on installing these motor mounts is some couple options that I think people are doing is that if you're keeping your stock transmission, original transmission, and you're just buying that adapter flex plate to work with it, okay, it's fine. So what I would do is, if you're going to just mate the engine to the transmission inside the engine bay, I would get the transmission mounted first, and then I would just take the nose and I'd lift it up, and then I would install the plate here loosely though, like I wouldn't tighten none of the bolts, okay? And then I would just leave those in the hole as it slides down inside there. Leave that bolt in the hole. Before all that, just make sure that this is centered. Your differential bolts on the axle on this side, and the passenger side there. Make sure that those bolts are all centered and secure. And then you can go ahead and lift up the nose of it just enough. And also make sure that there is a mount that goes back there on the differential. Let me see if I can point it. That goes back here on the differential right there. Make sure that's loosened off so that the engine can move freely, because when I was designing these, I had that mounted to make sure that everything was exactly when it did get mounted. Then I snapped on my 46RE transmission, I snapped off the corner there. So just make sure that that's off, so, so you don't do any of that damage. And then you can always jack the that axle up right there where the pinion is, and then bolt it up if it's a stock transmission. Okay. Now, if you're doing an engine transmission swap, the rear mount, I would make sure that you wouldn't have it completely mounted until you get the engine mount set first. Okay, get the engine mount set and the engine set first, and then you can work on mounting the rear. I'm doing an 8 HP, the 8-speed swap. So since I broke the 46RE, snapped off that corner, I just started to do a 8-speed swap. So anyway, so that's what I suggest. And then after you get it all set, then what you can do is, measure for anything, like make sure it's level left to right, those types of things like that, and it should work. It will work. It should be setting. And then if you get the Mylodon pan, you kind of can see under here where it just clears the hoses and the differential, so all that stuff should clear. Yeah, and then even if you're going to install it where transmission and engine all at once, I still suggest you get the engine mounts set in place first, then you work on the rear, and then everything will be good. So that's just my suggestion. And the reason why I'm doing this video, you guys, is because the difficulty of these mounts is that it's kind of like fitting a square into a square hole that is exactly the same. The hole is just big enough for that square to fit directly on top. If you angle that square any which way, it won't fit in the hole. And that's kind of how these mounts are, okay? So you have to be a lot more exact on how you set them in there first, because when the engine's coming down, it's coming down at an angle. It's not coming down straight down. So just be aware of that when you're installing on the angle that you're coming down. Now, of course, if you can come straight down on top, that's the best. It'll slide right in. But most likely you're going to be coming at an angle where the front of the engine is higher than the rear of the engine, and you're going to be kind of trying to slide them in there. And it will take sometimes a little bit of maneuvering, especially if you're doing transmission engine altogether install. But there's my suggestions. If you have any questions, just leave me a message. Thanks. I want to also make another point is that you'll use your old hardware, this top bolt up there. I would suggest to take it all the way out of the aluminum mount. I will take the whole stud out, and then this one you use the old one. And I want to show you something here so that you guys can see is how it's level. It doesn't point left to right. So if you see it there, it says it's right in the middle. See what the digital gauge says, 0 2. There you go. So with these mounts, it's level 0, and it is squared up with the frame. So just remember, if you're doing custom transmission, or make sure you get the mount set, then you get the transmission part set. The transmission is set with the stock 46 RE transmission. To keep that in line.